I never imagined my own daughter would try to have me declared insane to steal my money. But there I sat in a courtroom at 70 years old, listening to her testify that I couldn't remember my own name. What she didn't know was that I'd spent 40 years as a litigation attorney, and I was about to remind her exactly how sharp my mind still was. My name is Margaret Elizabeth Chen. I'm 70 years old, and for most of my life, I believed that family meant loyalty. I raised my daughter Jennifer with every advantage I could give her. Private schools, college tuition, law school funding. Yes, she became a lawyer too, though she never practiced. I was so proud when she married Robert, a financial advisor who seemed stable and ambitious. When my husband David died 3 years ago and left me $3 million in assets, I thought my daughter would be happy for me. Happy that I'd be financially secure for the rest of my life. I was wrong. The first sign came 6 months after David's funeral. Jennifer suggested I move closer to her and Robert. They'd bought a large house in the suburbs with plenty of room, she said. I'd love the neighborhood. We could spend more time together. At the time, I thought it was sweet. I'd been lonely in the big house David and I had shared for 43 years. Every room held memories. Maybe a fresh start would be good. I sold the house and bought a modest condo 10 minutes from their place. 2 bedrooms, a view of the park, close enough to visit but far enough to maintain my independence. Or so I thought. The visits started immediately. Jennifer would stop by every other day, sometimes with Robert, sometimes alone. She'd check my refrigerator, comment on my groceries, ask if I was eating properly. She'd look through my mail, offering to help me organize my bills. She started suggesting I might want help managing my finances. It was a lot to keep track of at my age, she said. Robert was a professional. He could make sure everything was handled correctly. I declined, politely at first. I'd been managing money my entire adult life. I'd built a successful law practice, invested wisely, and David had left everything in perfect order. I knew exactly what I had and where it was. I didn't need help, but Jennifer persisted. She began talking about my age. 70 was old, People started having problems with memory, with judgment. I might not notice the decline myself. That's how it worked. Wouldn't I rather have someone looking out for me before something went wrong? I started documenting these conversations in a journal. Old lawyer habit, I suppose. Write everything down. Keep records. At the time, I told myself I was being paranoid. But something in my gut said to pay attention. The doctor's appointment started 3 months later. Jennifer insisted I needed a full checkup. When had I last seen a physician? She'd made an appointment with someone she knew. A geriatric specialist. The best in the city, she assured me. I went to humor her. Dr. Harrison seemed pleasant enough. He asked standard questions about my health, my routine, my memory. But then the questions got more pointed. Did I ever forget where I was? Did I have trouble managing tasks I used to do easily? Did I ever feel confused or disoriented? No, I told him. No to all of it. I was in excellent health for 70. I walked 3 miles every morning. I volunteered at the library twice a week. I was reading a biography of Eleanor Roosevelt and could discuss it in detail. I managed my own finances, cooked my own meals, drove my own car. I was fine. He seemed satisfied, but I noticed him making extensive notes. When I asked for a copy of my records, he said they'd mail them to me. They never did. When I called to request them again, his office said I needed to put the request in writing. When I did, they said there would be a fee. Then they said there was a processing delay. I finally got those records 8 months later, after I'd already hired my own attorney. The things Dr. Harrison had written in his notes bore no resemblance to our actual conversation. Around the same time, Jennifer suggested I move in with them. Just temporarily, she said. The condo was too much for me to maintain. I could sell it, put the money somewhere safe, and stay with them until I decided what I wanted to do long term. They had that big empty room upstairs. It would be fun, like when she was young and we'd spend evenings talking. I said no. I loved my condo. I loved my independence. I wasn't ready to give that up. Her demeanor changed after that. The visits became less friendly, more inspectional. She'd arrive unannounced, let herself in with the key I'd given her for emergencies, and walk through my home like she was conducting an investigation. She'd open cabinets, check my refrigerator, go through my bathroom looking at my medications. She started taking photos of things. A dish I'd left in the sink, a newspaper on the floor, a bill I'd set aside to pay later. When I asked what she was doing, she said she was worried about me. The condo was a mess. I wasn't taking care of myself. She showed the photos to Robert. They both agreed I was declining. I looked around my perfectly normal, lived-in home and felt something cold settle in my chest. This wasn't concern. This was something else entirely. The bank incident started next. I went to withdraw some cash and the teller gave me an odd look. She excused herself, spoke to the manager, and came back to say there was a flag on my account. Someone had called to express concerns about potential financial exploitation. The bank needed to verify that I was making decisions of my own free will. I was furious. I demanded to know who had called. They couldn't tell me, but I knew. When I confronted Jennifer, she admitted it immediately. She was trying to protect me, she said. Elderly people were vulnerable to scams. She'd read articles. She was just being careful. I told her to stop interfering. I told her I was perfectly capable of managing my own affairs. I told her that if she continued, I'd have to limit her access to my life. She cried. She apologized. She said she was just scared of losing me the way we'd lost Dad. She promised to back off. For 2 weeks, I didn't hear from her. I started to relax, thinking maybe we'd worked it out. Maybe she understood now that I was fine. Then the papers arrived. A process server came to my door on a Tuesday morning in April. I was served with a petition for guardianship and conservatorship. My daughter and son-in-law were asking the court to declare me mentally incompetent and to grant them full control over my person and my assets. I stood in my doorway, holding those documents, and felt the world tilt beneath me. I read through the petition twice, not believing what I was seeing. They claimed I had severe cognitive decline, that I couldn't manage my daily activities, that I was at risk of exploitation and self-neglect. They'd attached a letter from Dr. Harrison stating concerns about my mental capacity. They'd included the photos Jennifer had taken, presented as evidence that I couldn't maintain my living space. They'd included a statement from the bank about the flag on my account. They were building a case, a comprehensive, calculated case to have me declared incompetent so they could control my $3 million. I called my closest friend, Patricia, a woman I'd known since law school. I read her the petition over the phone. There was a long silence when I finished. Finally, she said what I was thinking. This is elder financial abuse. You need to fight this, Margaret. You need the best attorney you can find. I didn't need to find one. I called Sarah Blackwell, a former colleague who'd gone on to specialize in elder law and guardianship cases. We'd tried cases together 30 years ago. She knew exactly how sharp my mind was. When I told her what was happening, her reaction was immediate and fierce. This is fraud, she said. Attempted fraud. We're not just going to fight this guardianship petition. We're going to destroy it. And we're going to make sure they face consequences. We had 6 weeks until the hearing. 6 weeks to build our case. 6 weeks during which I couldn't let Jennifer and Robert know that I was preparing for war. I played the part they expected. When Jennifer called, I sounded uncertain, maybe a little confused. I asked her to explain the court papers again. I said I didn't really understand what was happening. I asked if she thought I really needed help. She ate it up. Her voice was soothing, patronizing. Don't worry, Mom, this is all for your own good. The court will appoint someone to take care of everything. You won't have to worry about bills or decisions anymore. We'll make sure you're safe. Meanwhile, I was doing something Jennifer had apparently forgotten I'd spent my entire career doing. I was gathering evidence. I scheduled a comprehensive neurological evaluation with a doctor Sarah recommended. Not a geriatric specialist with a relationship with my daughter, but a neurologist affiliated with the University Medical Center. Dr. Reeves put me through hours of cognitive testing, memory, reasoning, problem-solving, language skills. When he finished, he looked at me over his glasses and said something I'll never forget. Mrs. Chen, your cognitive function is remarkable for any age, let alone 70. You're sharper than most 40-year-olds I test. I see no evidence whatsoever of cognitive decline. I got that opinion in writing, notarized, with his full CV attached. He agreed to testify if needed. I requested my complete medical records from every doctor I'd seen in the past 5 years. All of them showed the same thing. No cognitive issues, no memory problems, no concerns whatsoever about my mental capacity. I got statements from the library where I volunteered, from my book club, from my financial advisor, the one I'd used for 20 years, not the one married to my daughter. All of them confirmed the same thing. I was competent, engaged, and fully capable of managing my own affairs. Sarah subpoenaed Jennifer and Robert's financial records. What we found was illuminating. They were drowning in debt. The house they'd bought was mortgaged to the hilt. Robert had made several risky investments that had gone south. They'd taken out a home equity line of credit and maxed it out. They owed over $400,000 and had almost no savings. Then Sarah found the life insurance policy, the one I'd forgotten about, a $2 million policy David had taken out years ago with me as the beneficiary. But someone had filed a beneficiary change form 6 months ago, changing it to Jennifer. The signature wasn't mine. It was close, but it wasn't mine. I'd never signed that document. That's when we knew this wasn't just about the guardianship. They'd been planning to control every aspect of my finances. The guardianship was just the legal framework to do it without my interference. Sarah took the fraudulent signature to a forensic document examiner. His report was unequivocal. The signature was a forgery. And there was more. The examiner found evidence that multiple documents had been altered or forged, including power of attorney forms I'd never signed and bank documents I'd never seen. We filed a motion to dismiss the guardianship petition, but Sarah had a better idea. "Don't tip our hand yet," she said. "Let them present their case. Let them commit to their lies in court, under oath. Then we'll bury them." The hearing was scheduled for a Friday morning in June. I dressed carefully that day. A navy suit, pearls, low heels. Professional, but not intimidating. I wanted to look exactly like what I was. A competent, elegant woman in full possession of her faculties. Jennifer and Robert were already there with their attorney when I arrived. Jennifer smiled at me, that same soothing, patronizing smile I'd been seeing for months. She came over to give me a hug. "It's going to be okay, Mom," she whispered. "This will all be over soon." I smiled back and said nothing. Their attorney went first. He painted a picture of a tragic decline. A brilliant woman brought low by age and grief. A daughter's desperate attempt to save her mother from herself. He called Dr. Harrison, who testified about his concerns regarding my cognitive function. He'd observed signs of memory loss, he said, confusion, inability to manage complex tasks. Sarah cross-examined him thoroughly. She asked about his notes, about the specific tests he'd administered, about his relationship with Jennifer and Robert. Dr. Harrison grew increasingly uncomfortable. He finally admitted he'd only seen me once, that Jennifer had referred me, and that his concerns were based largely on what Jennifer had told him, not on his own observations. Then they called Jennifer. She cried. She testified about how much she loved me, how painful it was to watch me deteriorate, how I'd forgotten to pay bills, left the stove on, gotten lost driving home. She described finding my condo in disarray, my refrigerator empty, my medications mismanaged. It was a masterful performance. If I hadn't known every word was a lie, I might have believed it myself. Robert testified next. He spoke about the financial concerns, about unauthorized credit card charges I didn't remember making, about my confusion when he tried to help me understand my bank statements, about his professional opinion that I was vulnerable to exploitation. Their attorney rested their case. The judge looked at me with what I can only describe as pity. He asked if I understood why we were all here today. I stood up. I looked him directly in the eye. I said that yes, Your Honor, I understood perfectly, and I asked permission to testify on my own behalf. The judge nodded. Sarah smiled. I walked to the witness stand and was sworn in. Sarah asked me to state my name, age, and former profession. My name is Margaret Elizabeth Chen. I'm 70 years old. I was a litigation attorney for 41 years, specializing in complex commercial disputes. I retired 3 years ago after my husband's death, not due to any cognitive decline, but because I'd earned the right to rest. The judge's eyebrows went up slightly. Sarah asked me to describe my current daily routine. I did, in detail. I described my morning walks, my volunteer work, the books I was reading, the investments I managed, the bills I paid on time, the meals I cooked. I recited the names and phone numbers of my friends, my doctors, my financial institutions. I explained compound interest and the rule against perpetuities just to show I could. Then Sarah asked me about the petition. Did I understand what my daughter and son-in-law were trying to do? I looked directly at Jennifer. I said that yes, I understood completely. They were attempting to have me declared mentally incompetent so they could gain control of my assets. Assets they desperately needed given their financial situation. I understood it was fraud. I understood it was elder abuse. And I understood exactly why they were doing it. Jennifer's face went white. Sarah entered Dr. Reeves's evaluation into evidence. She entered my medical records. She entered statements from everyone who interacted with me regularly. She entered my financial records showing perfect management of complex accounts. Then she entered the forensic document examiner's report on the forged signatures. The judge stopped looking pitying. He started looking angry. Sarah explained about the life insurance beneficiary change, about the forged power of attorney documents, about the pattern of fraud Jennifer and Robert had engaged in, all designed to gain control of my money. Then she asked the judge for permission to play a recording. I'd been wearing a wire for the past month with Sarah's guidance. Every conversation with Jennifer I'd recorded. We played segments for the court. Jennifer coaching me on what to say to doctors. Jennifer telling Robert they just needed to wait until the guardianship went through and they'd have access to everything. Jennifer discussing which of my assets they'd liquidate first. By the time the recording ended, Robert was sweating. Jennifer was crying, but these weren't the sympathetic tears she'd shed earlier. These were tears of panic. The judge called a recess. When we reconvened, he had the district attorney's office on the line. He denied the guardianship petition. Then he did something I wasn't expecting. He ordered Jennifer and Robert to be taken into custody immediately on suspicion of attempted fraud, forgery, and elder abuse. I watched as the bailiffs handcuffed my daughter. She looked at me, her face a mix of shock and betrayal, as if I'd been the one who'd wronged her. "Mom," she said. "Mom, please." I said nothing. There was nothing left to say. The district attorney's office moved quickly. They charged Jennifer and Robert with multiple felonies: attempted fraud, forgery, identity theft, attempted financial exploitation of an elderly person. The bail was set high enough that they had to mortgage their house to make it. The trial took place 8 months later. I testified for 3 hours. I presented every piece of evidence Sarah and I had collected. The jury deliberated for less than 2 hours, guilty on all counts. Jennifer was sentenced to 4 years in prison. Robert got 6, as the court determined he'd been the primary architect of the scheme. They were ordered to pay restitution, though I told the prosecutor I didn't want their money. I wanted the judgment on record. I wanted the criminal convictions. I wanted the legal system to acknowledge that what they'd tried to do to me was serious, criminal, and wrong. I attended every day of their trial. I sat in the front row and watched as the evidence mounted. I listened to their half-hearted apologies and their attempts to claim they'd only been trying to help me. I watched the jury's faces as they realized the depth of the betrayal. When the verdict was read, I felt something I hadn't expected. Not triumph, not satisfaction, just a deep, hollow sadness. This was my daughter, the child I'd raised, educated, loved, and she'd been willing to have me declared insane and locked away to steal my money. The legal process also reversed the beneficiary change on the life insurance policy. It returned all forged documents to their original state. It resulted in a restraining order barring both Jennifer and Robert from any contact with me. That was 18 months ago. I still live in my condo. I still walk every morning, volunteer at the library, manage my own finances. I've traveled some. I took a trip to Italy I'd been planning before all of this happened. I visited museums and ate incredible food and proved to myself that I could still navigate foreign countries and currency and language barriers just fine. I've made peace with most of what happened. I understand now that some people show you who they really are when money is involved. Jennifer showed me that her love had limits, that her ethics had a price point, that she was willing to destroy her own mother for $3 million. I've had to accept that I misread her for 70 years. That the daughter I thought I knew never really existed. Or maybe she did once, and greed transformed her into someone unrecognizable. I'll never know for sure. People ask me if I'll ever reconcile with her, if I'll visit her in prison or write to her or take her calls. The answer is no. Some betrayals are too fundamental. Some broken things can't be repaired. She didn't just try to steal my money. She tried to steal my autonomy, my dignity, my very identity. She was willing to have me declared incompetent, incapable, diminished. She was willing to lock me away and spend my final years controlling every aspect of my existence. That's not something you forgive. That's not something you reconcile. My attorney Sarah tells me I did the right thing. That fighting back sends a message to other elders facing similar situations. That standing up in court and proving my competence, then pursuing criminal charges, might give someone else the courage to do the same. I hope she's right. Because elder abuse is shockingly common, and often it comes from the people who are supposed to love you most. Adult children who see their aging parents as obstacles or ATM machines, who convince themselves they're entitled to assets that aren't theirs, who justify fraud and exploitation as somehow being in their parents' best interest. What happened to me could happen to anyone. The only difference is I had 40 years of legal training to draw on. I knew my rights. I knew how to gather evidence. I knew how to fight back. Most elderly people don't have those advantages. They trust their children. They believe the lies about their own declining competence. They sign over power of attorney or accept guardianship because they're told it's necessary. I was lucky. Lucky I recognized what was happening early enough. Lucky I had the resources to hire the best attorney. Lucky I had the mental clarity to build a case and see it through. But I shouldn't have had to be lucky. I shouldn't have had to fight my own daughter in court to maintain control of my own life. On some level, I understand the desperation that drove Jennifer and Robert. They were drowning financially. They saw my $3 million as a life raft. They convinced themselves that I didn't really need it, that I was old and wouldn't live much longer anyway, that they could manage it better than I could. But understanding doesn't equal forgiveness. They made a choice. They chose to try to destroy me rather than ask for help. They chose fraud over honesty. They chose their financial problems over my fundamental human rights. Now they're living with the consequences of that choice. Jennifer will be released in 2.5 more years if she gets good behavior credit. Robert has 4 years left on his sentence. They'll emerge with criminal records. Robert's financial licenses have been revoked. Their house was foreclosed on during the trial. Their marriage, I've heard, is barely surviving the strain of prison. Meanwhile, I'm sitting in my condo on a Saturday morning, drinking coffee and reading the newspaper. My accounts are secure. My mind is sharp. My life is my own. I answer to no one. I make my own decisions. I am, in every legal and practical sense, exactly what I've always been, competent. Sometimes I think about what would have happened if I hadn't fought back, if I'd believed them when they said I was declining, if I'd accepted the guardianship as inevitable. I'd be in some facility now, probably. A nursing home Jennifer and Robert selected based on cost rather than quality. They'd have liquidated my assets, spent my money, and visited me occasionally out of obligation. I'd have lost everything, not just my money, but my autonomy, my independence, my sense of self. The thought makes me physically ill. Instead, I'm here, free, in control, victorious, though it feels strange to use that word about a battle with my own child. I've started mentoring other elderly people who suspect they're being financially exploited. Sarah connects me with clients who need someone to talk to, someone who understands. I help them recognize the warning signs. I help them understand their rights. I help them find the courage to fight back. Because that's what this was really about. Courage. The courage to recognize that love and family don't give someone the right to steal from you or control you. The courage to stand up in court and defend yourself. The courage to pursue criminal charges against your own child, because what they did was criminal, regardless of blood. I learned something important through all of this. Being old doesn't mean being helpless. 70 doesn't mean incompetent. Age brings vulnerability in some ways, yes, but it also brings wisdom, experience, and the knowledge of exactly what you're willing to accept and what you're not. I wasn't willing to accept being declared mentally incompetent. I wasn't willing to accept losing control of my life. I wasn't willing to accept fraud and exploitation, even from my own daughter. So I fought. And I won. Not in the way I would have wanted to win. Not in a way that leaves me with a relationship with my daughter or any grandchildren I might have had someday. Not in a way that lets me maintain the illusion that my family loved me unconditionally. But I won the things that matter. My freedom, my autonomy, my assets, my mind, my future, and sometimes That has to be enough. I'm 70 years old. I've outlived my husband. I've survived my daughter's betrayal. I've proven in a court of law that I am exactly what I claim to be, fully competent, fully capable, and fully in control of my own life. Some people spend their final years being cared for by loving family. I'll spend mine being cared for by the person I trust most in the world, myself. And you know what? I'm okay with that. More than okay, because every morning I wake up in my own home, make my own decisions, and live my own life exactly as I choose. That's not what Jennifer wanted for me, but it's what I fought for. It's what I won, and it's what I'll protect with everything I have for as long as I have left, because competence isn't something someone else grants you. It's something you demonstrate. It's something you defend. And it's something no one, not even your own child, has the right to take away